Welcome to Something More with Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is a certified financial planner practitioner and senior vice president financial advisor at Wealth Enhancement Group, one of the nation's largest registered investment advisors. We call it Something More because we'd like to talk not only about those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Here he is, your fulfillment facilitator, your partner in prosperity, advising clients on Cape Cod and across the country. Here's your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Something More with Chris Boyd. I'm Chris Boyd, certified financial planner practitioner, and I'm here with Jeff Perry and Russ Ball. We are all of the AMR team at Wealth Enhancement Group, and so glad to have you with us. Hope you listen every week, share our show, and rate it. Always helps us. And if you didn't know, you can find us on video now as well as audio, and hope you'll take advantage of whatever medium you enjoy. So you can find us on our website, somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com, or you can check us out through the Wealth Enhancement Group's YouTube page as well.
Yeah, look for us on Facebook too. We're back on Facebook.
That's right.
If you're not already following it, put in Team AMR Wealth Enhancement Group and you'll find our page.
Love it. All right. Hope you'll join in on some of the things we promote and talk about. And it's always interesting topics going on from one month to the next.
There is not a shortage. How many, let's see, 17, 18 years you've been doing
Almost, yeah,
radio and podcast? I don't know, 1,100 podcasts probably out there.
Yes.
Have you ever, not ever, but is it customary that you don't have a topic in your mind?
No. There's always something of interest, whether it's news related or just good financial education that we can talk about.
I was agreeing with you. Like, I didn't think you, I mean, it's
You
always like,
knew I'd answer that way. Yeah.
it's like, what should we talk about? Not like, is there anything to talk about?
Yeah, exactly. Well, today we've got an interesting topic. This was
so.
one of your choice. And I was like, I don't want to talk about that. And as we're talking about it, it's like, oh my gosh, we've got a lot of interesting points of view to consider. So let's talk about it.
It's a topic that, when you get to be almost of the age to accept retirement, take retirement, claim retirement, whatever the word should be, you think about it. I mean, I'm 62 in 8 months. And it's like, I can take Social Security. Should I? Well, I know what we kind of think about as financial advisors. But then you read something, which I did, which is
stimulating this inquiry. Yeah,
I read something from a radio talk show host, which doesn't give him a lot of credibility, but I generally like him. And
he's a credible person in our industry.
Yep.
Dave Ramsey. Yeah,
Dave Ramsey. I'm a disciple, I guess you call it. I listen to the show. It's enjoyable. I like his principles, especially around debt. But I don't agree with everything that he says. Right?
Sure.
I don't agree with everything you say or Russ says. So,
Yes, you do. What?
Yes, sir, I do. I'm sorry. That was my inside voice coming out. No, none of us agree, but, we generally have these broad principles. And I was of the mindset that it is always or almost, if you're in good health, it's almost always best to delay taking your Social Security to your 70.
Yeah. It's not to say that there aren't exceptions and circumstances, but
right.
That is our default counsel.
That's right.
Is to try to wait till full retirement age, and if possible, delay till 70, unless, I'll put in a caveat, you have a reason to think your health might be compromised.
Right.
And similarly, you have to think in terms of not just one person, but two people, right? If you're married, who has the larger Social Security check, that one in particular is worthy of consideration for delay to maximize the benefits, so that if either one of you lives a longer lifespan, that you'd get the maximum benefits. Now, we test these and look at these circumstances. I was looking at one last night, and I ran the numbers on people, and I had them living till 94, 92. And it really didn't make that much difference whether they took it at full retirement age or 70. normally our optimal is, somewhere closer to 70 when you have a long lifespan assumed like that.
Right.
And just the math was like, nah, it's not that much of a difference.
Right.
So in that scenario, I kind of defaulted to full retirement age. But generally, I would be expecting most people benefit by a delay or the idea of trying to maximize, because by spending more of your own money early in retirement, you might spend less of your money over retirement. And that's the premise you're going to challenge.
I am. And I just want to throw one more caveat out there is most financial decisions, we meet with a lot of clients and they're a theme, certainly, but most of them are very individualized. We all have our own unique circumstances. I mean, some people reach age 62, for example, and they are retired because they can't work and they need the money, right? So that's
a very good point. It's
right?
a very good point. Circumstances can drive this, and types of resources, more pension, less pension, more assets, less assets. There are variables that can drive this. And your point about the kind of work one does and the demands that can have, it's not one size fits all, to your point.
Right. So if you hear something that doesn't make sense,
yeah,
we agree, and
Yeah.
we can help you. We help our clients when they come to this decision point in their lives and say, I'm thinking of retiring at age whatever. I'll have my 401k. I have this. Maybe I have a small pension. These are my assets. When should I take Social Security? And it is always an individual analysis of their facts and circumstances, their goals, their debt, their cash flows, everything, before we give somebody advice. So we're not giving any broad advice here.
Well said. I think, keep that in mind. We want to, anytime we want to make decisions like this, because these are very significant to your financial life, it needs to be in the context of a financial plan.
Yes.
And the influences of all the moving parts that can help to define what's the right answer, what's the best possibility. And there's lots of room for personal preferences in some of this, right? And I'm going to say, oh, there's a right answer or the wrong answer. There's not really a right answer or wrong answer that's, absolute. It's a matter of weighted priorities, right? And choices. You know what I mean? So by making this decision, there's a consequence. Is that more or less appealing to you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So let's go into why people might or might not want to start earlier than what I'm suggesting, full retirement or even maximum retirement type of ages as the preferred way to do it. One of them I already mentioned, and that is, you may not have the health that
That's right.
You expect to live long enough to recoup what you don't get by delaying, by starting. Keep in mind, when you start early, you discount your Social Security benefit.
Yep.
Some potentially as much as like 30%.
I've seen from full retirement age,
from
not
full
from
retirement
maximum.
age. Yeah, almost 55% or something
Right.
from maximum retirement age. With Social Security turn on, so it's and then the inflation adjustments and everything is on a smaller amount, so it doesn't you never catch up, so to speak, in one sense.
Right.
Your premise to this from this article is maybe there's another way to approach this.
Right. So if you don't have a health condition and you are eligible to start collecting Social Security benefits at 62, and I'm going to say you're not working, because that's another thing that we can add in later. So you're not working, and so the premise from Mr. Ramsey in his article is, if you're not working and you can collect the Social Security at 62 and you're not going to spend it, he's very clear in his comment. If you're just going to increase your lifestyle, don't do it. But if you're not going to spend it, you have that discipline, which I think 90% of the people, if they get a deposit into their checking account, are likely going to spend it. But
yeah, I think that's the challenge with this, and you're laying it out very nicely. I think that's the biggest hurdle to whether or not this option really will play out is, will people be disciplined, not spend that money, but actually take it and invest it? There's
that's
some
what,
tax that they'd have to incur, but
right.
put it to work. And saying, oh, if you invest it, it's going to last longer because now it's going to grow into something more. And then when you turn on your Social Security benefits, you've got this pool of money that's also earning something.
That's right. That's the premise of taking that $1,500, $2,000 a month that hypothetically someone is collecting at age 62 and putting it directly into an investment account, into some investment mix that's right for your risk tolerance, and that is part of that being exposed to the equity market, so you have some potential for gains.
Yeah,
that it'll last longer and be something that you could leave to your part of your legacy if you didn't spend it all, is more advantageous than waiting for a higher benefit later. And of course, if you pass away from 62 to, say 80,
yeah,
you would,
or even later, perhaps,
yeah,
if you're actually doing this.
that's right. It's more financially advantageous to do.
All right, I get your point. I think I take issue with the practical reality that, will people actually do that? Because experience tends to be that people don't tend to do that. But that's a possibility. What about, there are some other variables
There's
that
a
we
lot of
need to
variables.
consider.
Yep.
Oh, so you look like you're about to chime in, though. I want to give you a chance to speak before.
Well, I was thinking, you have to be pretty exposed to the market to make up the difference in the return that you'd be getting between Social Security. If you're getting, it's like a 50 something, some odd percent difference between.
Yeah. So you're probably losing about a 6% discount, is it, per year? And then you'd be making 8% once you get past full retirement. So
let's call it like 6.5 or
7, 6.5,
yeah,
whatever it might be. But, are you going to make that kind of rate of return, so to speak,
right.
Is your point.
And that's not a huge time frame. It's 8 years, right? So, and you have to be willing to take on a significant amount of risk to get that return. Are you going to be putting every paycheck that you get into the S&P 500, or I don't know, some kind of?
Yeah, I follow your point.
So you have to take that into consideration too. Are you going to be willing to risk first? You have to be willing to save the money. So take that check and invest it. Then you have to be willing to see some volatility when that money is invested.
Yeah,
and it's like a pretty. You have to do pretty well year over year in that 8-year time frame to get the returns that you'd expect.
Which isn't to say that you couldn't.
Right.
It's just there's a tolerance that you'd have to incur and be benefiting from. Okay, good thought. I saw you doing the calculator over there, so I was like, all right, he's got something he's cooking up.
Yeah.
I was expecting sort of like you were doing the time value of money or something, for a second.
The calculation, just to push back a little bit, is not that straight. Meaning, at the end of the time period, although you're in a decreased, you remain the rest of your life in that decreased benefit.
Yeah,
it continues on, right? So
it does forever at a discount.
At a discount, but not to the full amount. You have to do the math. That is, you don't have to make the gain.
Your point, I think, let's see if I'm saying this the way you're intending. So the only thing we have to consider is the difference between 62 and 70, if in this scenario.
That's right.
That's the delta or whatever that you're talking about, benefit drawback.
Just say the benefit at 62 is 1,500 and the benefit at 70 is 3,000, round numbers.
Okay. Yeah, just for a ballpark. Yeah.
Right. So you're only, the difference, the delta is 1,500, not 3,000 when you're doing the math.
Actually, I think that even overstates it. Sorry. Because it's a 50% increase in benefit. So if it was 1,500, it would be
3,000.
That's a double the benefit, right?
Right. And
that's 100%. So it'd be like, it'd be, 750 more.
I'm going to age 70, not age 66 or 67.
Yeah. All right. I think we're saying the same thing. I just think
Yeah.
we're coming up with a different number. That's fine. I get the point.
But the delta, whatever it is, and that's a variable number too. It's not a simple double or 50% or whatever the calculation is. It is your individual delta.
Yeah, I mean that is calculable and it is consistent. What those particulars numbers are will differ from one person to the next,
Yeah.
right?
All I'm saying is you don't have to, just to stick with my numbers, if it's 1,500 and then 3,000, the money that you save and invest for those years, you're only having to make up in your investment gains what you would have gotten if you had waited.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is in your numbers, which we can discuss whether they're the right numbers we should use or but
Sure.
just for illustrative purposes. It's $1,500 per month.
Correct.
And I think it's actually 220 it would be more like 750. Okay. In this scenario, but 750 a month, we need to be saying, did my accumulated wealth generate sufficiently that I can derive more than or 750 a month for the rest of my life and then have money left over?
Correct.
By starting at 62. Right.
And once again, I think this is going to go back to the question that always goes in the beginning of a Social Security decision is how long am I going to live?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly in the early years, it's beneficial if you get the average return of a portfolio.
Yeah. Another your point about sequence and returns and so forth, that's certainly relevant, right? Mm-hmm. But another consideration for people to think about is, are they working?
That's a big one.
Even part-time. There's a threshold by which if you exceed a certain amount of income between that 62 to full retirement age, let's call it 67, then you're going to be penalized and lose essentially a lot of that.
Portion of your Social Security will become taxable, right?
Yeah.
And that is it's kind of an unspoken mistake that so many people make. I'm in Florida, as our regular listeners know, and I know a lot of people who retire to Florida before full retirement age, and they're taking their Social Security. I mean, the data is pretty strong that shows a lot of people take Social Security at 67.
Yes.
And 62.
62, I think, is
winner,
very
right?
common, right?
That's
very
the winner.
Common.
The winner or the loser. It's the choice that a lot of people make.
Yeah.
And so they make it, they retire, not just to Florida, but they retire and they think that they're not going to work.
Right.
And a lot of people go back to work either because of social reasons, they want that interaction, or they want or extra money. Inflation
income,
drove some people back to work. Whatever the reason is, or their employer calls them and say, "Hey, can you work halftime?" or whatever the situation is.
A little bit of,
and they never knew, or they never contemplated that part of their Social Security would then be subject to tax.
So the good news in that scenario is if that happens to you, you can suspend your benefits, and there is virtue. You can get benefit from that later on when you turn it on later. On. Yeah. Back at full retirement age or after, you could benefit from that. I would also argue that, for many people, when they start their Social Security earlier and they discontinue work earlier, just generally, not necessarily the Social Security topic per se, but the notion that you're drawing from your portfolio that much sooner, that it has a compounded consequence. It's not just, I'm not saving. It's not that it's not growing. And then you're withdrawing from it, and there's a ripple effect that can have a consequence to that. So that's a little off the Social Security part of this.
No, but it's relevant.
The timing of your retirement or lack of work, perhaps, can really be affect some of these things. And so how much you have is a variable, right? What are my sources of cash flow? Do I have a pension? Do I have other resources too? Could be meaningful in this kind of consideration also, right?
Absolutely. And back to the tax issue and suspending, which is a good option for people who find themselves going back to work unexpectedly and don't want to have that Social Security income subject to taxation, or at least part of it.
Yeah.
In this scenario of this hypothetical idea, if you do that, then you're off that plan. Because the plan is that you take the money, you invest it in equity exposed investments to get the return. You do not touch it until age 70 in Dave Ramsey's scenario.
Yeah.
Russ?
It requires a, pretty rare, like you said, level of discipline, and expenses come up all the time. Like something happened with the car, and I recently had an issue with the tires of my car, unexpected expense, and these things will come up, and then to keep using those funds and keep investing them regardless, it's challenging. I think just psychologically, I think to be getting that check in the mail every month, or it's just people are more likely to spend it than save it on the whole. And I think
I do agree with you.
Yeah, I've read some research around that kind of thinking, and when people are getting those monthly checks, it's more likely that they're going to feel that they can spend it. And
well, yeah, go ahead, Russ. Sorry.
No, I think it just speaks to what you were saying, that it's a smaller percentage of people that are going to be likely to do this successfully and capitalize on that difference in delta.
We got to remember the category that Mr. Ramsey's talking about. He's talking about a category of people who don't need the money, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't need the money, that doesn't mean you're flush, but you just don't need it at the moment for cash flow.
Mhm.
And that $2,000 pops in your checking account each month, and your neighbors are planning a cruise, and they ask you, and it's like, well, we couldn't normally afford to take an extra cruise, but this $2,000 is just sitting there. We can skip a month, use it for that. I think it's going to creep, right? It's going to, some of these discretionary things, or maybe an emergency, as you said, a lot of people, most people would be tempted to miss a couple months and take a portion of it, which skews the whole model.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? And I bet if we were having this conversation with Dave Ramsey himself, he probably wouldn't disagree with anything we're talking about here.
No,
you know what I mean? The practical realities versus the true, who's going to be disciplined about this, who actually doesn't need the money. It's not to say that there aren't those people out there. I'm sure there are, and that could be a better math equation. There are variables, though. You have to be willing to take risk with those funds, not just park it in a guaranteed account.
That's right.
Where you would not necessarily get the same kind of return as if you were to delay on the Social Security decision.
Yep. Well, this just fits Dave's entire model of being super disciplined, whether it's debt reduction or, whatever it is. It's 100% in, or it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. Anything you want to take it another direction, Jeff?
No, it's an intriguing option for people who don't need the money.
Like you're thinking about it yourself. No.
Well, most things that we think about, we think in the context of ourselves or someone that we know, right? A client, maybe. Does this work for a certain client? And I'm turning 62 in January, but I'm still working.
There you go.
And like most good
you're going to continue
red-blooded Americans, I do not like paying taxes.
There you go. Yep.
So I don't think I think I have the discipline.
I'm sure you, if anyone would, I think, Jeff, we can agree you would.
But I don't think I'd consider it because of the tax consequence. It's a dynamic calculation. Certainly looking at Lisa's future Social Security benefits, my Social Security benefits, potentially working. It's a dynamic calculation that I'll do.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll dig through it. But my guess is it doesn't matter enough. And one just final thought about why I likely won't do it is, we think about Social Security as a fixed amount of money. When we think about where our income comes from,
Mm-hmm.
If we have a pension that's fixed, so that we feel positive about that. Some people have sold annuities, not that we typically recommend them, but they choose an annuity because it's fixed.
There's a
So they don't.
guarantee associated
And then we
with it.
think of Social Security as fixed, and then we think of our assets, our investments, our 401ks, our IRAs, as money that we will withdraw from in the future. But we understand that's not fixed, so so you're almost adding like half of your whatever the number is.
Yeah, that's one of those fixed numbers. You're moving toward a variable number.
You're throwing it into the non-fixed category, right?
Yeah.
Even if the math works, you're going to get this.
Yeah, that's a good point at a high level, just conceptual.
Right.
Do we want to have more money in that bucket versus the absolute kind of mindset? The Social Security thing, naturally it brings up the whole topic of 2033 or whatever that, maybe we won't dig into right now, but this is one of those variables that it leaves investors uncertain about. And this is one of the reasons I think people will say to me frequently, well, maybe that's a reason I should start it sooner, because I don't know what's going to happen down the road. Will there be a reduction in Social Security benefits if they don't address the challenge that exists right now, which is that there's insufficient resources to make good on the promises that have been made?
The full benefit, right?
The full benefit. It's not to say that there won't be benefits, just it wouldn't be the full benefit. I don't think that's likely to happen, but I think that's another variable I guess you could add into this equation that might influence somebody's judgment based on how they see what's going to happen with Social Security benefits in the future.
Yeah, I remain fully committed to my opinion of if a certain political party allowed Social Security not to pay the full benefits, that would be the end of that political party.
Certainly for a long time in
either party. If they are the ones labeled with
responsibility for that,
it would be the end of that political party. So I don't see it. I get it. We need to deal with it. And I think we will probably.
And it is they call it the third rail for a reason. It's like everybody makes hay with the other guys trying to take your benefit, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it leads to,
unnecessary stress for
there's a lot of people that's worried about some of this stuff. I've had a lot of calls just recently with all that's going on in Washington these days, where clients are saying, is my Social Security going to be disrupted? I don't think so, but I get why people have anxiety around it. There's a lot of rhetoric.
Can't guarantee it, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of just as you described it, that's how I tend to frame it for people. Yeah, it's like it would be politically unpalatable for any, anyone to try to tank those kind of benefits that people enjoy.
Whether or not it's a good decision or not, I think they'll borrow money before they cut benefits.
I think so too. I think that's the likelihood. Well, this was an interesting thought exercise. Probably a few people that could maybe benefit, thinking like being really disciplined, maybe inclined to do that. I think it's worth thinking about, but
get some help with the decision. As you see, we were stuck on certain parts of it as well. We're just talking it out for the first time. It is not a simple math formula. It may look like one, but it is not.
Yeah, and I think it's something that, a little bit of help goes a long way.
Right.
Interesting topic. Thanks for bringing it up, Jeff. Thanks all for being with us. If you need a little help in your financial planning or portfolio management, please reach out to us. That's why we're here. We're happy to speak with you. Until next time, everybody, keep striving for something more.
Thank you for listening to Something More with Chris Boyd. Call us for help, whether it's for financial planning or portfolio management, insurance concerns, or those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Whatever's on your mind, visit us at somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com or call us toll free at 866-771-8901 or send us your questions to amr-info@wealthenhancement.com. You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd Financial Talk Show. Wealth Enhancement Advisory Services and J. Christopher Boyd provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. Wealth Enhancement Group cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.